Good evening. I'm Ann Toback, CEO of the Workers' Circle. Welcome to our virtual mobilization to fight voter suppression before the election. We're going to get things started now with the hip-hop freedom music of the Peace Poets.
Peace, family. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Frankie, and up there is Luaya. We are two members of the Peace Poets, a hip hop collective, spoken word collective from the Bronx, spreading awareness, spreading community through our art. And it is a pleasure to be here with you tonight. We are keeping in mind everybody who is on this call and everybody who has also come with us on this call. So this first song is called Never Alone, and it's grounding us in community. It's grounding us in all those people who taught us to be the way we are, to show up for our people day in and day out. So feel free to sing along. I know you're listening. I know you're there. And no matter who's in the room, just go ahead and sing it from your heart, sing it from your soul. It goes like this. I have not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I have not come here alone. And if you listen, you can hear that in my soul. I have not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I have not come here alone. And if you listen, you can hear them in my soul. I'm not alone like a people at a graduation. You hear the coro in the back? That's a celebration. Rooted in culture, traditions of libations, stolen black gold, spread through many nations, so many iterations, so many variations. But at large, we don't understand the situation. Love is simple, but we're caught up in the complication. I'm not alone, I feel myself in your vibration. Showing up loud with my grandmother's voice, coming through calm with my old man's poise. In case you're wondering who making all the noise, I'm coming with the hood who taught me King Soy. I'm from a long line of activistas, breaking down the borders of imperialistas. And we don't die, we multiply. We're a million more times than meets the eye. I have not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I have not come here alone. And if you listen, you can hear them in my soul. One more time. I have not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I have not come here alone. And if you listen, you can hear them in my soul. Peace.
Thank you so much, Frankie. That was incredible. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Ann Toback, the CEO of the Workers' Circle. Thank you so much for joining our virtual mobilization to fight voter suppression before the election. Voting is the cornerstone of our democracy. But in the upcoming election, voters in almost half the country are facing voting restrictions. New state voter suppression laws are targeting voters of color, young voters, and members of vulnerable communities. That's why the Workers' Circle is organizing to reach more than 1 million voters in voter-suppressed states before the November election. We are calling, texting, door-knocking, and postcarding voters and providing them with the crucial nonpartisan information they need to overcome barriers to the ballot box. Already, we've connected to over 830,000 voters, and with your help, we'll reach and empower even more. Our message to everyone tonight: you can make a difference. You can make an impact in our fight for democracy and against fascism in the United States today. The Workers' Circle is a national, domestic, secular, Jewish social justice organization. We were founded by Eastern European immigrants who came to the United States fleeing autocracy and seeking democratic freedoms at the turn of the 20th century. That history drives our work for an inclusive democracy and human equality today. Tonight, we'll hear from Maya Wiley, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Andrea Miller, co-founder of the Center for Common Ground, Reverend Mark Thompson of the Make It Plain podcast, and special guests, actors Mel Harris and Dan Lauria, and music, as you've already heard, from the Peace Poets, who I'm inviting back right now for another song.
Thank you so much. This next song is about honoring the generations of our relatives, the generations who have fought for the right to vote. So wherever you are, just like that first song, I'm inviting you to sing this with me. It goes like this. We the people are for the people, and for the people we act. We the people are for the people, now will you have our back? We the people are for the people, and for the people we act. That's right. We the people are for the people, now will you have our back? Then we say, we won't ever let go of that hard-won freedom to vote. Try that with me. Say, we won't ever let go of that hard-won freedom to vote. Oh, that's amazing. I know right now everybody here is feeling that. We're remembering all the people who have fought for that right to vote. So tonight we gather across this good land, and what we're going to do is really call them in. Sing it 2 more times, that last part about those who have fought like we're fighting today. We're going to bring them here. We're going to do this work like it's a promise, like it's a prayer, like it's a gift, like it's everything we got. Sing it with me. Say, we won't ever let go of that hard-won freedom to vote. Thank you, my people. Love and respect.
Phenomenal. That's what cultural activism looks like. Please join me, everyone, in thanking the Peace Poets for inspiring us right now and year after year. And everyone, keep an eye on the chat through this Zoom. You will find background on all of our guests, and our social justice organizers are going to be dropping in links for you to get involved in all of the issues we're discussing. We know that to keep our democracy strong, our activism must be ongoing. History has shown us victories won can also be undone. Right now, we're experiencing a frightening rise of fascist politics in the United States. We're watching the authoritarian movement using the language of hate with the intent to divide us. Language and actions that demonize immigrants, that suggests Jews have divided loyalties, that demeans and threatens people of color, people with disabilities, women, LGBTQI, and even veterans in order to consolidate power. Their movement even had the audacity to publish their playbook, Project 2025, outlining in minute detail their plan to overturn our democracy and freedoms. This election is the most important of our lives, which brings us to tonight and to the issue of voter suppression right here, right now in America. This is an all hands on deck moment. We can mobilize people to vote their values, but if they're unable to successfully cast their ballot due to voter suppression, all is lost. Through the Workers' Circle Demand Democracy, Fight Fascism campaign, we've partnered with the Center for Common Ground, Black Voters Matter, and Vote Riders to reach voters who are at risk of having been purged from the rolls and voters facing new, stringent voter ID requirements at the polls. All of our outreach is to make sure voters have the information they need to navigate these barriers and vote. Tonight, you'll learn more about how you can join in phone banking, text banking, and in-person mobilizations with our trusted partners, and why these efforts are critical and impactful. You'll have the opportunity to support these efforts with your financial gifts. And most importantly, you'll leave this mobilization knowing you're not alone, that you are part of a movement alongside hundreds of thousands for a multiracial, multicultural democracy that stretches across our nation. Now, it's my great pleasure to welcome Maya Wiley, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Maya, thank you so very much for joining us tonight.
And it is such a pleasure to be with you, and I'm just grateful I got some peace poets.
I know. It's always a good night when the peace poets lead off, right? So Maya, the Workers' Circle was among the founding organizations of the Leadership Conference in 1950. At that time, all of the conference members were working together to end segregation, for civil rights, for voting rights, and an end to the filibuster. We made enormous progress then, but at a great cost. Today, we're refighting so many of these issues. Maya, what does it mean to you to fight for a truly multiracial, multicultural democracy today? And what's different about the fight for this vision in 2024?
And, that's such an important question. I do want to preface it also by saying huge thanks to Andrea Miller, Dan Lauria, Mel Harris, and my dear, dear friend, Reverend Mark Thompson. I'm just very, very privileged to be in this amazing group of leaders. And with all of you who are here, who are joining, who are doing the work. Because as you know, and in answer to your question, I tell you the way it feels. It feels like power. It feels like power. And there's a coalition, and the Leadership Conference turns 75 years next year, as you know, Anne, founded in 1950. But, the importance of the Leadership Conference isn't that it was an organization, it's that it was a coalition. It's that it was Black, it was Jewish, it was labor, organized labor, United Auto Workers, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. And what made it powerful was, even when you think about the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it took both activism, but it took an activism where, as we know, Black people put it on the line, regular folks every day in community put it on the line, peaceful protest. But it was over 100 organizations that came together to help get the Voting Rights Act passed in 1965. No one would have thought we necessarily would have won that fight, right, if it weren't for the collective. And one of the things that it taught me, and I say this obviously not as someone who participated directly, but as someone who was fortunate enough to be at the feet of the civil rights movement, is how many people did the work to get us there who didn't get to the mountaintop, didn't get there with us, right? I mean, it took 100 years from the end of the Civil War to the Voting Rights Act in 1965 to actually get the legislation that was going to protect our rights after all that effort to prevent folks from voting. And the reason that is so important is it took us all coming together. It took a coalition, but it took folks on the ground who were so brave and so willing to risk their lives. And some folks lost their lives, we have to remember, for those rights. But the reality is, the reason we're in the position we're in today is because we are still working across communities. We are still a coalition. We are more powerful. So they got to rig the rules. They got to cheat. They got to try to make it hard for people to vote who have every lawful right to vote, who are still going to decide the outcome of this election no matter what. And that's what we have to remember now. And that's what we have to remind people is we are powerful, and we're more powerful together than apart. And we're more unified than ever about the importance of not just this election, but of a freedom-loving future, a future focus. And Project, you called it, and Project 2025 has really, for anyone who wasn't clear what was at stake, and why we're looking at a time where Project 2025 makes quite explicit that what they would like to do is roll back all the gains of the last 7 decades. And really more than 7, because
I was going to say beyond, way beyond.
For hundreds of years, but
Yeah.
certainly that we started winning, right? That we started winning in the 50s and 60s in legislation. They're explicit about it. They're explicitly going after the Civil Rights Act. They're explicitly going after the Voting Rights Act. They're explicitly trying to end the Department of Education. They're explicitly trying to end vote. But the only reason they have to rig the rules to do it, that's what we have to understand. That means real power, and that means power when we bring it to the polls, is the power to say, we are the majority of this country, and we won't let you. And that's the way it feels. I just say, live in power, because
I love it. And I just want to say, I've heard you say it before, Maya, and it resonates. And we do have the power, and that's really what tonight and what the next few months, the next month plus ongoing is all about, and what we're here to do. So let me just move on to get to some of our future plans. So in 2013, Shelby County v. Holder, the Supreme Court struck down a very important part of the Voting Rights Act that required states with long history of voter suppression to have any changes to state voting laws approved by the federal government. And now, in its wake, states passed more than 100 laws to restrict the vote. That's just an incredible number. And we know that for this election, we have to help millions of people overcome barriers to the ballot box. But we also know that ultimately, and in the near future, we have to eliminate the barriers to voting entirely. So why don't you tell us more about federal legislation that we need for every voter to cast their ballot freely, and that the Leadership Conference is really taking a lead role in organizing us around?
Well, thank you for that question. And again, thank you for the partnership, the coalition. This is such an amazing breadth of people, of organizations, of groups are coming together. And this is so important, Anne, and you know this, and I think many of you do, not just to get back to where we were in 2013.
Right.
That is not our goal. Our goal is to say, nope, there is a floor beneath which no voter can fall, meaning we, in the Freedom to Vote Act, will say there's certain of these shenanigans, that's my official legal word for it, shenanigans that politicians, that powerful people in states do to try to make it harder for people to show up the polls, particularly people of color. Let's be clear, particularly people of color. But people who are elderly, people who are students, people who may be living with disabilities, all of these barriers can be eliminated. The state laws that we saw getting passed after Shelby, some before Shelby even, to say, no, you can't do that. We have to allow mail-in balloting, for example, which makes it so much easier for people to vote. We have to ensure that, we have early voting. We have to have registration processes that make it easier for people to register. All of these would become nationalized, meaning every state would have to have these basic rules. Now, you could have more and different rules on top of them, but the reason that's so important is that's what we did not have before Shelby or after Shelby. And that's why states could do what we're seeing right now, which is make up problems that don't exist and then create barriers to citizens voting. So Freedom to Vote Act is a critical piece of this to carry us forward. And on top of that, getting back to the voting rights protections that said you can't discriminate against people because of who they are, and that we will have what we call pre-clearance, but simply reinstating that if we see patterns of you adopting rules that make it harder for people to vote that are not covered in the Freedom to Vote Act, Freedom to Vote Act will prevent a lot of them in the first place. we will have the Department of Justice able to stop rigging the election before it happens. And of course, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act really making clear that race discrimination, other forms of discrimination in voting just are not permissible. And I want to add the Native American Voting Rights Act.
Yes.
It is really important to say, you know, all our communities experience some form of, you know, powerful people trying to make it harder for people to vote so they can stay in power. But Native American reservations have particular challenges. And so it is important that we make sure we're tailoring to all communities. So we've been calling all three of these pieces of legislation a freedom package. And that's the way we work on it. We work on it hand in hand. We work on it across communities so that, and we just had a lobby day. I just want to tell you how powerful it was. That lobby day we had a couple weeks ago for these pieces of legislation where we said, we showed how we look like the United States of America, the people who were there lobbying. We had over 30 lobby meetings because we're a coalition and because we're able to bring all that power to play. We had incredibly important meetings, but we also brought the message of the filibuster, that we cannot, will not, and should not have any rules rooted in racism, designed to protect white supremacy, and get in the way of a majority of the people of this country getting the kinds of laws they're voting in leaders to pass, that cannot stand in the way of winning legislation that produces rights and freedoms, period. So that's voting rights, but that's also abortion. That's also being able to identify who you are by your own gender identity, not have anyone tell you what it is. That means all the things we care about in terms of everyone being able to live a full life in their community and as who they are. And that message was powerful. But all I can say is, with these pieces of legislation, we don't just go back to 2013. We go ahead of 2024.
Hear, hear. Let's move forward in the future. And we were proud to be a part of that coalition action. Here at the Workers' Circle, coalition work is really our bread and butter and has been and will always be. It's being part of the leadership conference is such a powerful part of our work.
We're so grateful. We're so grateful.
Right back. And really the work we're doing tonight and everyone on this Zoom, it's being part of a community and being part of a powerful community to elevate everyone. And that's something I can't speak more highly of and really encourage everyone. That's what taking part in this is all about. And just to lift up what you just said, we've been putting in the chat links to a petition, a grassroots petition that urges Congress to pass all of these acts right away, and it can't happen too soon. So Maya, here at the Workers' Circle, we've been talking about the rise of fascist politics in our nation. And as a Jewish organization, you can imagine we do not use the word lightly. But white reactionary conservatives and movements have created a divide between us and them, and they've stoked hatred and violence to consolidate their power. And alarmingly, we've seen this all before. So my question to you is, how can we make the best headway to counter this hatred with solidarity and, as you so often say to us, power?
Well, Anne, I have to say you and the Workers' Circle are already doing it, because this is exactly how we do it. First of all, it's not being afraid to unite and to make the demands that are going to protect us all, protect our democracy, protect every community, and say that we are diverse and we are going to be together as one country for a diverse and bright shared freedom future. And I can't say, you know, I know it sounds easy and it's not easy. right? We know it's not easy. It's not as easy as it sounds because we don't agree on everything across communities all the time. We have different experiences. We have different things that, we care about sometimes. We know that there are tensions in the world and around the globe, and we're facing all kinds of challenges in how we understand each other. But what's so important is what we're seeing is the effort to weaponize that, to drive division between us, when the truth is we have much more in common, much more we agree upon, and much more we care about that we share than any divisions. And so as long as we're staying together in coalition, having the discussions, doing the work together, and also recognizing when it's a playbook, because that playbook is in play right now. That playbook right now is really weaponizing this big lie of non-citizen voting. And as we've seen, whether it's the racist rumors about who Haitian people are in Ohio, or literally sending armed police to an 87-year-old grandmother's home because she's helping people, because she's Latina and she was helping people to register to vote in Texas. I mean, what North Carolina, all of this, Georgia, but it is a playbook that is seeking to confuse and drive fear as a wedge and a set of divisions. And as long as we say, nope, we're going to look at facts, not fiction, and we're going to understand the playbook here. The playbook is to distract and to divide. And the best antidote to that is to be in coalition and stay unified and focused on what we know is real. And one thing that is still real is our democracy and our democratic right to vote. And nobody can take that. And the voters will decide in this election. They will. But nobody can take that unless we let them. And we only let them if we allow them to distract and divide us. And we haven't been doing that. We won't do that. And it's a huge debt of gratitude we owe to the Workers' Circle for being part of not allowing that to happen.
Well, it's really our DNA, and it keeps us strong and empowered. So thank you for leading the leadership conference and uniting all of us and helping us work as a community to change the world for the better. So thank you so much, Maya, for being with us tonight, and looking forward to celebrating some victories in the future and getting out the vote.
We will win. It's not just when we fight, we win. It's when we stay together, we win, and we do both together. And I'm just so grateful to be in this fight with you.
Well, every vote, I think, is a victory for us. People need to be able to get to the polls, and that's where we are. And voting rights are a victory.
Yes.
So thank you so much, and onward and upward.
Thank you. Be well.
You too. So we have a sense of the vision and the purpose of our work. And now let's take a closer look at what voter suppression is looking like right now on the ground and how we can fight against it. It's my honor and really truly pleasure to welcome Andrea Miller, the founder of the Center for Common Ground, and someone I'm honored to call my friend. Andrea, welcome to this Zoom.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and this is wonderful. And Maya, delighted to meet you on this Zoom. I love being in coalition with the Workers' Circle. I have admired the work of the Lawyers Committee and so many other groups for so long. This is really a fight that we all win together.
It's always so inspiring to be with Maya. It's so inspiring to be with you. Andrea, your energy, I don't know where you get it. I mean, we all have some energy, but you just inspire us all. And we love working in partnership with the Center for Common Ground. And we've now, with you, connected with hundreds of thousands of voters. So the work is in front of us, and it is truly a joy. It's joyful to work together. So Andrea, people are more familiar, I'd say, with voter suppression of the Jim Crow era. poll taxes, arbitrary tests like asking people in 30 seconds to count the number of beans in a jar, and more. But voter suppression today is not as clear to many. And I think I routinely meet educated people, people who watch the news, who are surprised when I tell them about the millions of people right now being impacted by voter suppression laws. And they include today voter ID requirements, closing polling sites, banning drop boxes, and limiting early voting. And I just want to say, for those of us on the East Coast, just to remind you, like, we don't have many drop boxes, certainly not in New York. So these are some new terms for us. Could you walk us through what's happening on the ground, and what voter suppression is looking like in 2024?
That is a fantastic question, Anne. Thank you. You referenced Jim Crow. Well, that was the voter suppression of the 50s, the 60s, the 20th century. The voter suppression of the 21st century, I want you to think of James L. Crow with an E, Esquire. It is legal. It is well thought out. And when you look at it and hear it, it kind of sounds reasonable, but it isn't. Voter ID laws was something that you mentioned. Well, a lot of the US is rural, especially in the South. So if you imagine, many Black people in Southern states were not allowed to be born in hospitals until the 1970s. So they may not have had Social Security numbers if they never left their little rural communities. A lot of people were poor. They never really had driver's license. They didn't have cars. So suddenly, when you have to have a photo ID, you need a birth certificate to get a photo ID. And if anybody that had a birth certificate, if you ever lost it and had to get a certified copy, you know it is time consuming and it's expensive. So again, let's add rural people, lack of computers, lack of money, and now we are potentially suppressing one of the most consistent set of Black voters in America, older Black voters who either grew up in the civil rights era or their parents were part of the civil rights era. I'm going to give you another one. You mentioned drop boxes. The state of North Carolina does not have drop boxes. There's not one in the state. Now, they do have vote by mail. So you request your ballot and your ballot comes, and now you've got to put postage on it. It's not a simple letter with what, 60-cent stamp. It's $1.77 to mail this thing back. And you can take it to the registrar's office or surrender it at an early voting site. But they also limit what if you are older, who can bring your ballot back for you if you are struggling to bring it back yourself. So again, it's like, well, that sounds like a good rule. You can't bring other people's ballot back. Wait a minute. There's a lot of older people. They aren't going to be able to bring their own ballots back. So this kind of tries to force people to go and do in-person voting. There is a huge movement right now on Capitol Hill to add citizenship, proof of citizenship in order to vote. And they're going, if you don't put this in, then we're not going to pass the budget. And again, how many people would really have to struggle to prove that they were a citizen if they did not have a birth certificate? There are just so many things that on the face of it, it kind of sounds reasonable. I'm going to give you another one. Early voting locations, where do you find them? On the internet. What if you don't have a computer? What if you don't have the internet? So I call that one voter suppression by technology. And now let's look at a really expensive voter suppression by technology. These new voting machines, the kind they use in Georgia, that New York wants to buy, and a number of other states use them. Now, I have a major vision problem. So for me to look at a screen, if it's not exactly the right light, I'm going to really struggle to see what's on that screen. So imagine a person who's older, who's not comfortable with computers. Now you've got to pick who you want to vote for on this computer. And then it says, okay, is this who you want to vote for? Well, if you make a mistake, that's not who I want to vote for. How do I go back and change it? And then they go, oh, well, but it produces a receipt. The receipt is in barcode. Most people I know don't read barcode. Maybe it's just me, but I don't read barcode. So many things.
So I don't read barcode either. And I want to just mention, I don't know where my birth certificate is right now. So, I mean, I just challenge everyone to consider this. Not everyone knows, not everyone has a passport. There's so many obstacles. I also want to talk to you, Andrea, about voter challenges and voter purging. These are some concepts words that people are starting to hear. These voter purges are going on and removing thousands upon thousands of people from the voting rolls, and even people that voted in the latest primary. So they may have voted just within a few months ago, this year, and people who voted for years are finding their names removed from the rolls. So Andrea, you've said that one of the most important things voters across the country can do right now is make sure that they still have the ability to vote. So I'd love for you to tell us more about this. And first, I want to tell everyone we're dropping a link in the chat, and I'm encouraging everyone, check your voter registration right now. We've been doing programs like this, and when we're all on the Zoom, you'd be surprised how many people are surprised to see that they're not there. So everyone, this is something you can do right now. And you can also, in the future, share this link with everyone you know and tell them, check your registration. So now, Andrea, please talk to us about this.
Yes. Very, very important to check your voter registration, and you are looking to make sure it says you are active. Different states will have different rules if you are inactive, but you want to be active. One of the other things that's happening in a number of states is there are vigilantes, there's no other way to say it, that are going into election offices with a list of names saying these people aren't citizens or they should not be allowed to vote. I want them removed from the voter registration rolls. And many of these counties are doing it, and there is absolutely no notice. So you must check and check frequently until you successfully vote. One of the things that someone brought to my attention in Georgia was Black voters were getting attacked saying, oh, go and check your voter registration. And they would go to a website and they would put in their name and their address, and it would pull up their voter registration. If you weren't looking at the screen very carefully, the button where you thought, I'm going, yeah, okay, my voter registration is okay, was actually canceling your voter registration. Now, Georgia and many other states, they do not have same-day voter registration. And even though the states cannot purge after the 90-day mark, 90 days before the election, the state cannot do mass removals from the voter rolls. However, a voter can choose to unregister themselves at any time. And I was absolutely floored when I read about this. So our people in Georgia, which is where this happened, they were really telling people, check your registration every day until you vote. Once you vote, all right, go ahead and breathe a sigh of relief.
And it really doesn't hurt for everyone to just confirm their registration now and check it every week if you have a moment. Thank you, Andrea. This is all critical information, and you remind us of the power each of us has to make an enormous difference. And we are so proud of the work the Center for Common Ground does year-round and the partnership that the work we do together. So again, let me encourage everyone, come join us, be a part of this partnership and our enormous coalition of activists across the country. There's so much we can do together. And I look forward to continuing our work together, Andrea.
Oh, thank you, Anne. And I want to add one more thing.
Of course.
People are probably wondering, why is there so much voter suppression in the state of Georgia? What is going on in Georgia? Well, in Georgia, 34% of the registered voters are Black. And the people in power are in panic mode.
So let's all get to the polls, because as we've been hearing, we have the power. We just need to use it. And power to us all. So thank you again, Andrea, and I'll be seeing you soon on the front lines. So I am going to jump ahead and welcome two special guests, the actors Mel Harris and Dan Lauria. So many of you know Mel Harris, who played Hope Murdoch in 30-something, and she's starring in a new movie, Queen of Knives. Dan Lauria is the prolific television and theater actor, possibly best known for playing the dad on the Emmy Award-winning show The Wonder Years. And besides being incredible actors, Mel and Dan are committed to strengthening our democracy, and we are so glad you're both joining us today. Thank you so much, Mel and Dan.
Thanks for having us.
Back at, yeah, absolutely. I'm humbled to be amongst this group.
Well, it's incredible. It's wonderful that you use your star power to inspire people to activism alongside. Again, it's all about partnership, coalition, and we're all in this together. So Mel and Dan, you've been listening to the speakers tonight and reflecting on the challenges to democracy our country is facing as we approach the election. So I'll start by asking you what resonates most deeply with you. Mel, why don't you go first?
Wow. I mean, so much has been said that's so powerful already. I think there's a couple of things that have resonated with me. First of all, everybody who's listening, who's spending their time to be here and to get all the information from the Worker Circle, it's just, I salute you for doing that homework and for being here. The other thing is that it's about the value of a vote, a single vote, and the effect that it has on policies and elections and our courts and so many things. But Maya, who spoke about a vote and how important that is, she also used the word we. And I think that's what's powerful, because when you take one vote and make it we vote, it's exponential, and it's incredibly important.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And Dan, what give us some of what brings you here today as well.
Well, I'm a Marine. I mean, we're talking about, look, reason why I put on a uniform is so if somebody disagreed with our government, they could take a knee in quiet protest and not get a bayonet shoved through them.
It's also what we're all working toward is a time when we vote, and no matter who we're voting for, they stand for democracy. And we have confidence in the system because we know that the system supports us, and that's democracy. So we're definitely here to rebuild and move, as Maya said, move that democracy forward. So everyone has the opportunity to vote and know their vote counts. So I know each of you, you're talking a little bit about your own stories, and many people are concerned about the state of our nation, and to many, so many people are still on the sidelines, wondering what they can do to make a difference. As actors who are also civically involved, is there a message you want to share? And you started, but to get out there to people. Mel, I'll go back to you, and then Dan.
Yeah, I knew this from a young age, because my mom taught me that your vote was important and that your contribution, therefore, were important. The thing about making a difference is to be involved, and not everybody's comfortable with being involved in certain things. Some people don't want to get on a phone bank or knock on doors, but there are so many ways that you can do it. You can write postcards. You can be a part of a phone bank or a text bank, which we now can do. You can knock on doors. You can give money. You can support causes, particularly with your actions, with your labors that you believe in, that are important to you, that resonate with you. And it's check voter registration. You guys covered that, which is fantastic. And you don't have to do it just by yourself. Do you have a neighbor who can't get to the poll and needs a ride? You can get your Mahjong group together, and you can all write postcards, or however it is, you can be creative, but you can also expand that into Maya's we. And I think that's important, that you should do what you're comfortable contributing. And there's so many ways to do it.
Agreed. And Dan, what do you say to people about getting involved in this work?
Well, I think Mel said it best. Help your neighbor. Help your neighbor get their vote in, because a lot of good men died for you to vote. So help you.
That's really or powerful.
Check their registration or any of those things, but you're absolutely right. I mean, my parents as well, serving in our nation's military, and it's incredibly important. And a lot of people need that support. There's nothing. We are a democracy, and it's the core of us is right there.
Agreed. And Dan, thank you for your service. It's an incredible contribution to our democracy to be out there protecting it. So I just want to thank both of you, and I hope we can see each other again on the front lines. There's a lot that we're doing. And Mel, I really liked what you said, because there are so many different ways people can get involved today. And we're going to give some more out, but I do want to encourage everyone. Some people are a little bit phone shy or camera shy. There's so many different things you can do. The text banks are very simple. And as far as making phone calls, remember, because we're nonpartisan, we're just calling people and giving them the critical information so they can overcome some of the obstacles that are out there to voting. And we're calling communities that many people aren't reaching out to. I haven't experienced a negative call. People say thank you, and they're really happy to get the call. So it's not like, I know my cell phone is always buzzing with all sorts of nonsensical phone calls. That's not the case for the communities we're calling, and they appreciate it. And the message, the information is very useful. So I just wanted to say that, if you're wondering, just test some of these things out. Try some of it. Try a text bank. Try a phone bank. And we've already sent thousands and thousands of cards. And thank you to everyone. I know some people on the Zoom right now were part of it. So thank you, Mel. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate your work, your service, and I look forward to working together in the future.
Many
Thanks,
thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, Mel.
And now, I'm going to turn to Reverend Mark Thompson of the Make It Plain podcast. I am thrilled to be welcoming you, Mark, to this Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a tough night for you, that you've lost a good friend recently, and I think is that him behind you?
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm sorry I'm delayed. Dikembe Mutombo passed away this morning. I was, as some know, I was one of Coach Thompson's student managers, and Dikembe at one time was my roommate. In fact, when he first came from Africa, he was with me. I was kind of responsible for helping him make his acclimation to the United States. He couldn't even speak English yet.
Wow.
And this is a good brother. And, you know, folks, when we were the same age, so we all know how it feels when folk our age begin to pass away. We begin to think about our own mortality. But Dikembe is somewhat relevant because Dikembe gave and gave and gave. He built hospitals in Africa. He made his humanitarian work so important. And I know we've been talking tonight about our responsibilities. Folks, we do have a big one. I actually have had some conversations with the campaign and other political operatives today. We need to do all we can to be sure that everybody we know can register to vote, can be reached out to, can be mobilized. It's not in the news every minute, but voter suppression is still very, very real, and it is ongoing. And so every dollar you can give can make a difference in making this happen. Dikembe, when you think about it, was multicultural too. He was from Africa, and he began the wave. Look at all the NBA players now that come from all parts of the world, from Asia and from Europe. Dikembe and Hakeem Olajuwon kind of got that going coming from Africa, and then also showed the importance of all of these cultures working together for the betterment of humankind. And that's what we're here for. That's why I'm a part of the Workers' Circle and proud to be. You got somebody running around saying, talking about one candidate not really being black, trying to define her ethnicity, and then saying that Jewish people would be crazy to vote for her or to do certain things. Who talks to people that way? As I often say, and I'll say it until my last days, the coalition that existed between all of our groups when Dr. King was alive, the beloved community, was threatened. And so it was a threat. And so that is one of the reasons he lost his life. Let's rebuild that beloved community, work together. Whatever you can give the Workers' Circle, we welcome you to give. And then also do some volunteering, get involved, help do phone banking to get the vote out. That's what we need.
Yeah. And you know, Maya Wiley was on and sends her greatest regards to you, and was talking about all of this voter suppression, all of this increased attack is because we, the people, have the power to make change and make a difference. The power is ours to use, and we need to use it. So if you could tell us what our power looks like in practice, what is this collective action, and why is it so critical that we demand a multiracial, multicultural democracy today?
Well, again, if we have first of all, if we have a multiracial and multicultural democracy, we are in action combating those who would continue to drive us apart and divide us. You know, some folk use division to affect voter turnout, to be discouraging, to make people think things are not okay, to make people think that they'll be punished if they vote a certain way. People use the opposite of multiculturalism and togetherness and building a beloved community to discourage people from actually voting and participating in this type of activism. That's the difference we can make right now. we have more in common than we have differences. And Lord knows people always try to stoke division between the African American community and the Jewish community.
Yes.
At least 70% of the Jewish voters vote the same way as 90% of African American voters. So what do we really disagree on? You know, and when I say that to people, that shuts them right up. I didn't know that. So, you know, but people benefit from stoking division and fear. And we can go back and look through history and see where the George Wallaces and the Richard Nixons and the Barry Goldwaters and people did those type of things. And they made sure that our division would remain intact after the Civil Rights Movement. They never wanted that type of unity together. They bombed churches and they bombed synagogues, and they still
Oh,
are.
yes.
So,
Yeah.
so we must do all we can to stand up and say we will not allow ourselves to be divided. All different cultures have differences, but at the end of the day, we're all here together. We all want better lives for our families. We want to not just be uh, uh, middle class, which really isn't middle class anymore. Most of us fall in
Yeah.
we're working somewhere between on the spectrum of working poor to working class. All of us do. Until we come together as groups of people to combat that and organize ourselves and those who might be disaffected to vote. Some people still think, well, my vote's not going to make a difference. There's nothing I can do. There's a friend of mine who says, if you don't do politics, politics does you. Decisions are being made. All women, no matter their race or ethnicity, are affected by the Dobbs decision. All women are affected by that. All
Hmm.
are affected. All seniors are affected by voter suppression. All of us are affected when they try to ban books about our cultures in school. That affects all of us. So there is sheer power in our unity. And one of the ways we can do that, one of the ways we can start doing that, right, is by
Hmm.
participating with the workers circle. We know we're very likely the man is kind of broad telecasted. We may be very well be looking at a level of fascism coming our way. We can see that by the statements that are made, the very divisive statements that are made. So we want to do something about that. We want to keep the power of the vote there. And, you know, maybe at some point, folks, we do need to talk about this electoral college and what that means and how it helps or how it doesn't help. Every
Yeah.
vote should count. One person, one vote is what we ought to be striving for. But we can't even guarantee that unless those of us here are doing all we can to inform the public about how important it is not to stay home. Literally, you'd be surprised. And I encourage everyone, talk to everyday people. Talk to somebody who's driving you in an Uber and a Lyft. And you'll be surprised. We assume a lot of times, you know, a lot of us in our own bubbles, you know, Ann and I are like, Noel and I are like, so we, you know, we kind of enable each other. But when we're not around each other, when we talk to other folk, they shock us. Oh, I'm not
They
thinking
are
about,
shocked.
yeah, I don't have time to vote. I have to go to work. I have to have somebody take care of my children. Oh my God. Now that's not a small thing. That's real. Some people it's not convenient to vote for. That is why for them to vote. That is why it's important for us to get involved, even at the local level, when it comes to election boards and school boards. All of that happens locally, so we can be sure that polling places remain open. We can be sure that there are enough polling places for everybody to go and vote in. All of those things absolutely matter. All right. So giving is a form of activism, getting involved, helping us out with our phone banking. All of this can make a difference when it comes to and folks, we're just about 30 days out. That should make everybody kind of mobilized. 30 days from
It's
now.
time. Well, we're talking about doing the work, and I do want to put in a plug. We could use financial support to help us reach hundreds of thousands of voters out there. Every phone bank, every text bank. We're resourcing other groups out there like Broadway Votes. Your donation can help us make more of a difference. So every dollar we're collecting goes right out to connecting with voters on the ground.
What is
There's no,
Andrew's put in the text? For example, more than 206, more than a quarter of a million people have already early voted. People are voting now.
yeah. Well, and we want more people to vote. I mean, people need the information right now on the ground, and that's so. I know that they're putting some links in. They've been putting links in the chat throughout this program to volunteer, and also we got to ask you, please give because we've reached 830,000 voters so far. We want to cross that million and go higher and higher and higher. And we have been reaching hundreds of thousands of voters. Weekly, we're reaching thousands and thousands of voters. So please consider donating, because your donations matter and enable us to get out there. We're planning a trip to North Carolina this month. Funding will help us bring more people. So every dollar helps and every phone call helps. So please, like, if everyone on this Zoom does some door knocking or some text banking or phone calling or just make a donation. And I saw some people said, I don't have a cell phone. That's fine. We'll put you to work. And I'm so thrilled people are here joining us. So thank you, Mark, for your powerful words. And I see we're really a little over time. So I just want to thank everyone and say, get involved. We have over 30 days till the election, and we have a lot of work still to do to protect our democracy, demand it, and fight fascism, and be powerful and give. Let's say, so I'm just going to thank everyone who participated with us tonight. Please join me, everyone, in thanking the Peace Poets, Maya Wiley, Andrea Miller, Reverend Mark Thompson, Mel Harris, Dan Lauria, and I also want to thank our Social Justice Director, Noelle D'Amico, who we ran out of some time, but she'll be joining us at the next Zoom, and she's on Zooms and text banks and phone calls, and she'll be joining us in North Carolina when we go door knocking. And thank you to our ASL translators. And most importantly, thank all of you for your commitment to fighting voter suppression and making sure that every voter can cast their ballot in 2024 and in the future. We salute you, and we look forward to seeing you on the front lines. Good night, everyone.